How many plays there? All man it pleases thee. She shake na thee. I think I talked about going live today, but I didn't announce the time. So I've just decided to do it as uh, as early as possible, knowing fully well that most of you will watch afterward. Today I want to talk about a lot of issues. I know you are constantly being bombarded with a lot of information that benefits the enemy. And the hope of these people is that it confuses you and it gives you a sense of a lagging struggle. No, all this talk left and right is based on people's opinion, even though expressed most of the times as though it is objective reality. Secondly, these talks is based on a sense of loss. There are people within our struggle who felt a sense of entitlement, who felt their opinion was sacrosanct, and who suddenly feel like they are being left out in the decision making process in our struggle. Every Amazonian counts, every opinion contributes to awareness, negatively or positively. And so sometimes the biggest trees in the jungle are not planted by those who love those trees. There are different agents of denudation. It might be planted by the birds that feed on the fruit of that tree. It might be planted by the wind. It might even be planted by parasites or other agents that attempted to destroy that tree. So everybody's contribution in our struggle, negative or positive, has its place. Some of those who take information, the farthest are not lovers of that information. Those who criticize, they create a milieu of discussion that brings clarity to policies and to practices. A lot of very angry people out there, a lot of very angry people out there, and anger sometimes comes out of frustration. Some are genuine, that they genuinely believe that particular policies are counterproductive to our liberation effort, and some lack the discipline in expressing that position. And sometimes with the cheap nature of our communication today, Many people are going to express their opinion before analyzing the facts. It is a responsibility of leadership to come time and again and explain these policies. Sometimes I don't do it to convince you. I do it for you to understand them. And sometimes we look at policies as isolated. We see them as unique, as we are the creators of these strategies. No, some strategies we implement are strategies that have been implemented in other struggles effectively. Sometimes we see strategies as important only if we can quantify outcomes as successful. No, some strategies are contributive. They are not the principal strategies that lead to particular outcomes. Some strategies simply contribute to the strategies that will give the desired outcome. So liberation wars are very complex. They are not as simplistic as we see them. And it is not the criticism sometimes we make. It is not the anger we express. It is the way we do them, because we do them as though we possess objective reality. We do them as though we have done our homework and we have come to the unassailable conclusion that particular strategies are unhelpful. When you watch other societies and you find this sense of anger and entitlement by a particular generation or set of persons, and that holds true for places like the United States of America, where for many years, whites were informed and told that they are the privileged race and that they were entitled and that they were superior and that the greatest inventions of the world were created by whites, were invented by whites. As time has gone by, research has begun to prove no, that other races have contributed equally, if not more, to the great cultures of the United States and other parts of the world, and to the technologies that we are using today, that other cultures, other races have contributed even more than whites. And so you find different politicians who whip up the sentiments as other races thrive for equality, as they emerge from the doldrums of discrimination and affliction to a platform where they start being seen as dignified, as human beings. Politicians usually instrumentalize different sectors of our society, and you find a wildness of politics in the way we've never seen before, except in the 1930s. That's how Hitler rose to power. He rose to power on the platform of a certain disenfranchised white Aryan race that has been disaffected by modernization. And he whipped up the sentiments of so many people and hate for others that led to the death of more than 12 million people. We saw a genocide in Rwanda, grounded still on this notion of superiority, of entitlement. And when people feel like they are losing this platform of power and entitlement, they go on the rampage. It leads to genocide. It leads to first dehumanization, attacks on each other, and then it translates into violence where millions of people lose their lives. It's the same thing with Cameroon. For more than 60 years, they've told a big lie all the time. We are Le Bamenda, we are Les Anglo. We are talking about freedom simply because we have oil. They've called us all sort of names. And in our struggle for survival, We have accepted those denigrations. We've accepted those negative tags in exchange for opportunities. And finally, when a generation rose up more than 30 years ago to demand for equality, to demand for respect, the response from Yaoundé was really violent because they could not understand how the Amazonian who had accepted a status of slavery, a status of disenfranchisement, could suddenly be asking to be treated in the same way like the superclass. And if you see sometimes the killings in Gabo, the burning of villages and roasting of Mama Api in the house, it's not simply because it's an act of war. It's simply driven by anger from a people who cannot believe that suddenly this Lebamenda, the 2 cubes of sugar, should be able to rise and ask for a state of their own, to ask for equality, let alone a state of their own. And that holds true to our own ordinary lives, that we must treat each other with respect. We must put our opinions to test. And we must have the humility to defend our opinions with facts and translate and be able to translate those opinions backed by evidence to an objective reality that is acceptable across the board. That is how we should and must conduct ourselves in this society where, in this society where we find ourselves today. And so I'm having this discussion because it's I don't listen to most of the audios you people make or read all of the things that are said out there. But sometimes I have a peek of some of those things, and you could really feel a sense of anger in people. Such a high sense of negative energy. It's gonna ruin your life. And I feel it's out of frustration and out of a sense of a loss of perceived power that we've never had. The central piece of my discussion today is about the taxi color. I've spoken about it several times, and I would like to speak about it today. Since it's not an AGOC policy, we have many members of the AGOC who still are questioning it. Some have called me to ask for questions, and I take my time to clarify. And the reason I do this is because although it's not a policy, I don't think it's a bad idea. And I would explain that using other cases. On the 26th of June 1952, the ANC instituted what they call the Defiance Campaign. It included bus boycotts. What would you say today if we will institute a boycott of buses? What would you say? And sometimes they did this boycott because of the increase in prices. We have seen the same in Amazonia, where traveling from Bamenda, say, to Victoria or Kumba, the prices simply just go up. We can explain that. We can explain that away, justifying it based on inflation that has led to increase in prices. So, how will you feel if we say there will be a bus boycott? Some of you would begin to complain. You would say we're punishing our people, and you are going to shout at the top of your voices. This was also a strategy in the United States of America in the height of civil rights campaign. Look at the bravery of Rosa Parks. If it was in Amazonia that we were told that all Amazonians have to sit at the back of the bus, some of you will argue for the rest of the day that, oh, don't you arrive at your destination? Does it matter where you sit? Why must you risk the population simply because of where they sit on the bus? That will be the argument. And if we would say, no, you must sit wherever you want, either in front or behind, you are going to argue how we are putting our population at risk. We don't fight for Amazonia. We are saying these things because we are in safety. Rosa Parks simply refused to move to the back of the bus. An act of defiance, an act of bravery. And somebody would ask me, how would that contribute to desegregation? Will that end with the simple act of refusing to go to the back of the bus and segregation? It may not end as it didn't end with Rosa Parks, but it contributed to a certain degree of awareness that, move the desegregation struggle or the anti-discrimination struggle to the next level. A moment, please. Why are you people calling? You are not in the LGC. I'm live. Don't you people read offices? So, sorry. First was the spokesman. Second was the Secretary General of the ADF. And they have all seen the link. All right, on my place day. We will continue to have these calls. We're at war. We're just having a family discussion. So no, we should not take it too serious. I will sometimes step aside to have this conversation. I'm having this conversation so you people begin to look at other struggles and some of the policies we put in place from a different perspective. I'm not, as I've said, I'm not here to convince you. Some people have had their minds made up. But you may not like it, but you may listen and understand. And so when Rosa Parks said, no, I'm not going to the back of the bus, it created the riots. People were jailed. In South Africa, it was the same. There was the campaign, as part of the defiance campaign, of burning of passbooks. If we would say maybe the ID card that La Republique is burning, oh, there will be hell. How greedy is it possible? What are they going to be using? Yes, we understand. When you rise up to dismantle a system of occupation, there will be deprivation to a certain level. And we unsoap it. And that's why we are taking these steps in an incremental fashion. There were areas in South Africa where blacks could not go in. You know that. The defiance campaign staged acts of defiance where people should go into those places. Sometimes it led to the arrest of thousands of people, sometimes 2,000. What would you say if we will institute a campaign in Amazonia that leads to the arrest of 2,000 people? What would you say? What would you say? Most of you will be screaming how unconscionable we are. And I think these examples are examples to show you how others did it. It is not only the arrest of sometimes 2,000 persons. Some of them were asked to pay fines and they refused. We aren't paying any fines. We're going to be in jail. And they went to jail. What was the strategy? To overwhelm the system, make it unworkable. That was the essence of the defiance campaign. Did it succeed? It did not succeed. But what the defiance campaign did was it showed the South African people that you can be defiant against the system. It exposed the cruelty of the South African system. And that even led to a statement by the United Nations for the first time. Because of a campaign that did not succeed, its specific objective was to overwhelm the South African system. It did not succeed to overwhelm the system, but it contributed to a high degree of consciousness. It exposed the cruelty of the system. It exposed its limitation, and it led to the United Nations making a statement about the system. But this is another casualty, which some of you might not even accept today. Chief Luteli, who was then the President General of the ANC, was tried of treason. It was not an armed struggle. It was simply a defiance campaign. And that was not all. He was deposed of his chieftaincy in the Zulu clan. Every action you take in a struggle for freedom has consequences. We found a pastor in Mator who was brutally murdered simply for carrying the flag. Yet, we have our prisoners in Kondengi who carry the flag, whether it's plastic bags, as act of defiance. Sometimes the stance you take is simply an act of defiance. It's an act of rejection. 2002, we seized the Cameroon embassy in Bonn. We took it over. How do you think that would have led to our independence? We all ended up in jail. How do you think that contributed to our independence? It might not have contributed to our independence, but it contributed to the consciousness or to the conscientization effort of the civil society. And it also showed our people that we can defy these people. 2001, we had SCNC militants and members in Bui who were on the street, constantly raising our flag. Many lost their lives. How do you think that contributed to our independence? Some of them, you don't even know their names. They laid the foundation of the resistance you see today. There were times there in Ambazonia 30 years ago, we got out of our houses in the middle of the night and we were banging on everything, making noise, conscientizing our population. We move in the dark and raise our flags secretly. There was no WhatsApp, there was no Facebook, there was no cell phone. Just to keep the spirit of Ambazonia alive, so that upon that foundation, the next generation could take it to the next level. 1997, we attacked Kumbo, Oku, Jakiri. More than 300 persons were taken into Kondengi. You may ask, how was that going to bring us independence? It didn't. But it laid the foundation of the struggle, of the progress we are making today. More than 200 years ago, Kuva Likenye, they fight the Germans in Boya. He fought off the Germans He was exiled into Bimbia. The culture and history of defiance and resistance against foreign domination and its policies all through our existence have had consequences. I was dismissed from the University of Buea. It took me 14 years to be able to go back to the university. Was that anything? Think of Gilbert in Fulham, who was shot point blank at that university. Did he achieve the objective by sacrificing his life? Maybe not. Maybe you are up today because of the price he paid. 26th of May 1990, Juliet Sickert and others were murdered. 2 years later, we still have victims of grenade attacks in Bamenda. Victims who don't have arms because of defiance. In Victoria, we had street battles with the enemy. I will never forget it. One day we lost 5 persons in Victoria because we were protesting against the appointment of a government delegate. Did that remove the government delegate? Do you think the protest was useless? In his speech on the 20th of April 1964, justifying armed resistance, Mandela said, "Experience convinced us that rebellion would offer the South African government limitless opportunities for the indiscriminate slaughter of our people. But it was precisely because the soil of South Africa is already drenched with the blood of innocent Africans that we felt it our duty to make preparation as a long-term undertaking to use force in order to defend ourselves against force." Mandela recognized that in pivoting towards the armed struggle, it will lead to more bloodshed. It will lead to even more bloodshed. It would lead to even more attacks on the Black population. But he also recognized that the soil of South Africa is already flowing with the blood of millions. That held true for South Africa and holds true for Amazonia today. We are one of the only liberation struggle that has invited the population to take part in civil strife and defiance actions. Except on the 1st of October, that we call our population in places where we have some level of strength. We have mostly allowed our population and we have allowed our forces to prosecute the war. We have instituted policies that somehow get the population involved as a matter of consciousness. As I said, and I explained with the liberation tax, what you see is the money. Oh, we're collecting money from our population. And I explained the history of taxation. Taxation is a covenant between the taxpayer and the law provider. It helps to create the environment for interaction and for accountability. The tax law that we instituted generated a lot of discussions. First on the substance, on the procedure of implementation. It created a lot of consciousness. Have you seen a situation where people just get up and pay their tax? That's consciousness. My public relations officer got up the other day and paid his tax for 10 years. Why? There were two persons from Momo. They didn't pay through our forces. They paid through different networks, 5,000 each. Why did they pay? Is it out of fear? Consciousness? I wouldn't know. But the fact that there was no military behind them, forcing them to pay, the fact that on their own volition, they got up and paid, is the kind of consciousness we want to inculcate in the Amazonian people. Somebody asks, how is changing taxi color going to bring us independence? That same person had hailed the number plate ban as contributive. And I asked, how do you think the number plate would bring us independence? Someone said, how is it possible to drive a taxi with blue and white? How is it possible to drive a taxi without a CEMAC number plate? How is it possible? Somebody said, oh, it's a consequential, it's going to lead, to the death of our people. What about those who lock their shops on Mondays? What about those whose shops are being sealed in Kumba by the colonial mayor? What about those who have locked their shops every Monday for the past 7 years? You think it's not consequential? You think the colonial authorities do not know that they are respecting a law that has been put by Amazonians? What about those who stopped going to school for 5 years? Do you think the teachers who stopped going to school didn't have a price to pay? I understand these concerns, but I think sometimes it might be simply hypocritical, to support one action and try to manipulate another. Every stance we take is an act of defiance. Trust me. Those guys on the ground, they don't joke. And sometimes it's not because of what I say. I may be irrelevant in the whole scheme of things. If you listen to them, I was listening to an audio from a commander today. He's part of the APLC. I was shocked. He said, you people, some of you are complaining about the ban of taxis in Mezam. When they ban bikes in Boya, in Fako, and this is what he was saying. When they ban bikes in Fako, and he said, we should impose a ban on vehicles. Other commanders said, oh, we have to be prepared. And he said, for how long? Let us stop food going to the enemy territory. In the same way that, there was huge boycott of South Africa in the struggle against apartheid. And he said, other commanders and others said, oh no, let's have to prepare. And he asked, 6 months today, how far have we prepared? Why the forces in Mezam got up and say, you ban bike riders, we are going to stop taxis, we are going to stop every other motorable vehicle. And it worked. The debate amongst commanders is rife, it's intellectual. They think they should escalate the struggle. They think some of us are simply just exchanging freedom for comfort. We need comfort. And they think For them to leave the bushes and be normal people, we need to escalate the struggle and defeat the enemy. What did it take for the Haitians to defeat the French? What did it take for the French during the French Revolution to overthrow the monarchy? You think it was this kind of our people are suffering kind of arguments? What did it take Kagame to walk through to Kigali? 100 days, 1 million Rwandans killed. You think at one moment he contemplated that, oh no, if I stop, these butchers will stop killing our people? Do you think if we simply just bring back Cameroon flag and stop Monday ghost towns, remove the boys and the girls from the bushes, and then Cameroon will simply think that they will return our humanity? Amazonian civilians pay the least in all struggles that I have studied. They pay the least. And Amazonian civilians aren't complaining. The last time we put a lockdown, they announced another lockdown by themselves. And I got up and said, no, lockdown was, I think, Wednesday. Oh, I think Thursday. Just one Thursday. Every Thursday, these people stayed home. The Amazonian civilians, they want to see more resistance. They want to see more resistance. Under John Frundi, there was ghost towns 5 days a week. No, there was no bike, no taxi, nothing. Everything shut down. Amazonians stayed home. Some of you have argued that we should even suspend Monday ghost towns, simply one day of resistance. Why people are in the grave for life. People are in jail for 6-7 years today in a small space every day, 365 days a year. Our population is not complaining. You are bringing confusion because you feel like you've lost something. You're bringing confusion because you're driven by hate and anger. These men and women have announced that they need a change in color. You are arguing that, oh no, it is risky. What is risky changing the color? If drivers can drive without CEMAC number plate, what is risky changing color? I have argued that we should allow drivers to paint any color they want. You are still pumping venom out there. People lock on Mondays. It's risky. People pay taxes to Amazonia. It's risky. Abdul Karim in jail has rejected the court of the enemy. It's risky. Everything we do, the words we utter, the actions we take, carries with them a certain degree of risk. And if we collectively do it, we will defy the system in the same way that South Africans did, in the same way that the Americans did. Last outing, I read to you the letter from Birmingham jail by Martin Luther King Jr., when he was also being accused by other preacher men and women that he is the one inviting the fury of the enemy. As if without action, the enemy didn't kill. As I have said repeatedly, we are not simply being killed because there is an armed resistance. Amazonians were murdered in Calais. You refused to pay bribe, you were killed. Amazonians were jailed simply because the neighbor knew a friend who is a police officer. Students were killed for simply asking, a university that is perfect. Today, my people, 21st century, in the University of Boya, there is no internet. The University of Boya does not have internet. In one section of that university, there is Orange running a shop to sell SIM cards. In that small particular area, you can have free internet in a small section. I was admitted in that university mathematics, computer science since 1993. I know now we have a computer department. No internet. 21st century. Yet they have signed an agreement with France for driver's license when there are no roads. Look, my people, as I've said, I understand our internal arguments and fighting and whatever. I understand it, and we should continue to do so. But I ask that we do it with respect. We should have debates. If there is any of you who think, oh, let me call Dr. Chua Yaba and have this discussion with him publicly, I'm available. You know, and we should have it and let Cameroonians know that we are democratic and that when we think of ideas, when we look at policies, we have a rigorous conversation about those policies. And we may emerge from those conversations without agreeing, but at least we will understand. We should not talk about the Amazonian struggle as though we are imposing some cost on our population that other people didn't pay for. We rarely invite our population for civil actions on the street. Our soldiers shoulder the burden of the struggle. The least we ask them is to stay home. Our soldiers don't stay home. They are out to enforce the lockdown. We ask our people to pay 5,000 amber, 5,000 women, those who can pay. Some of you scream at the top of your voices. When you see pop going off, you are taking those videos, some of them, if it is not ADF, you're shouting. You don't know how it's paid for. You don't. When you see an action taken somewhere, you don't know who footed the bills. You're using it against A, B, and C. You want us to come out and be quarreling with you? What we want is to see a free Amazonia. What we want is that there is resistance continuously on the ground. If there are policy areas we need to talk about, let's have that conversation. If there are practical application of policies which we think are unacceptable, we should have that conversation. And I'm willing for us to have that conversation. I've been around long enough in this struggle to learn a lot of lessons. We are sprinters. That's the typical Amazonian in most walks of life. It's not innate, it's nurtured through the system of deprivation and exclusion. We were nurtured to be sprinters. Oh, we shout, oh yeah. After 200 meters, we start quarreling about having a rest. We start fighting about, oh, we should slow down, we should have a conversation, we are extremists. Look at what Hamas did. Hamas may be disbanded. Hamas may be disbanded. Trust me, it might be totally destroyed. Do you think the actions they did, if it was carried out by us, you will be sitting here and hailing Dr. Chua Yaba? Just imagine that we move into La Republique and kill 1,000 civilians. Do you think you will still be sitting here and hailing Dr. Chua Yaba? Wouldn't you have asked the ICC to pick me up immediately and take me into jail? I think we are weak in spirit. We are weak in spirit because we are jostling with life. For us who are in exile, we're struggling to make it. We're struggling to survive. We're struggling to help those back at home. And so we like a sense of normalcy. We like a sense of adjustment. There are other nationalists that don't take that shit. My role is to let you know, if you raise the white flag today, La Republique will not give you any respect. You have called yourself Cameroonian for as long as you were born. You were never respected. You've been treated like a scumbag. These people have never been willing to see us as humans equal in opportunities. They have always been willing to see us as animals with obligations. We have not started fighting these people. I have some of you listening to me or that will listen to these videos are in universities. You saw in universities how university students stood out for Palestine, occupied campuses in total defiance against what was happening thousands of miles away from their home. Have you ever seen Palestinians have been fighting for more than 50 years? Have you ever seen them, trying to even quarrel each other? They may have their kind of political differences. Have you seen ordinary Palestinians? Look at Gaza today, it's flattened. Have you seen one demonstration there against Hamas? Some of you have said, oh no, don't attack these people because it's because of the attack they come and burn houses. We will increase the heat on them. Take note, the South African armed resistance was about 15 to 20% in the overall scheme of strategies they employed against the South African regime. Ours is even close to 40%. We have devised one of the most effective strategies in the 21st century in countering a regime of impunity. There are two case studies that I want you to look into: Papua and Aceh. Aceh negotiated with Indonesia and accepted a certain degree of autonomy, constitutionally entrenched. Papua not. I want you to study a bit of Papua's resistance and understand why. Our struggle must be seen in light not of what we do, how much we do, but in light of what we face from Cameroon. We must be able, within Ambazonia, to reject anything associated with Cameroon, even if it means we do trade by barter. That is the level we need to think, even if we don't get there in terms of application. That is what Thomas Sankara calls certain degree of madness. You must begin to think that we will have to reject anything that is associated with Cameroon, even begin to trade in dollars. If you have not arrived at that level in your thought process, you have not started. You are still adjusting. We have also realized some of the greatest noisemakers, and we will begin to expose them. The greatest noisemakers, some of them have been civil servants within Cameroon. And they have moved out here and they still sneak back and collect salaries in jobs that they don't do. They don't want the status quo to change because of personal loss. There is one in the United States who has been attacking our struggle. He sneaked himself into Bamenda the other day, and we were watching and looking at him. The noise that he's making from out here, the moment he entered Ambazonia, he was wearing wig. My people, we should not talk too much. We should not argue too much. The argument we should be having is whether a La Republique soldier should be killed by firing squad or hanging. The argument we should be having is whether the international borders we have with La Republique should be extended right into Nkonsamba or into Bafusam. That is the level of argument we should be having if we consider the pain that these people have and continue to impose on us. If we consider the level of their arrogance against us, they have transformed our struggle into a space where they can come in time and again and recruit one person to go and make a case for them. My people, let me tell you something, and I have said this to you in different exchanges. Coexistence between Ambazonia and Cameroon is impossible. It is not because of what Dr. Choayaba says. It's not because of what you say or what the A says. It's impossible. There is no model. That is why they have been experimenting with federalism. They experimented with unitary state. They experimented with provincialism. They experimented with regionalism, and then they've given themselves special status because there is no model that exists that will put together a domineering centrist francophone state with Ambazonia. So when they come from amongst us and recruit traitors to go and argue that, we need to make some, what compromise do you want to make? They still occupy the land. They control the resources. You have their passport. They issue their ID. What is it that you want to give again as a compromise? You will be talking compromise with the people that can come on TV and say, yes, we understand that you are up in arms because of certain things that have happened. We are willing to have discussions on those things. No, you are dealing with the people who come on TV and call you terrorists, call you bandits, call you Le Bamenda, call you all sorts of names. That should rile you up. That should put you in a state of go, not in a state of contemplation. That's what all people desiring of freedom do. That's how they act. They are driven by the arrogance and brutality of their enemy, not even by ideology, not even by the outcome they seek. All what we have been doing is peripheral. Trust me, we have not started with the real liberation policies. We haven't started. Number plate, no, that's mile. Liberation tax, 5,000, no. We have not reached the level where we come and take your house and sell and get, 20 million to pay for bullets and guns. We haven't even reached that level. We have not reached the level where you cannot sell food to a Cameroonian. We have not reached the level where you cannot even speak French in Amazonia. We have not reached the level where you cannot say good morning to a Cameroonian. We have not reached any level. That is why you are having this conversation. You are having this conversation, you are making this noise, you are making all of these public arguments, this ranting, attacking the integrity of our forces, attacking the integrity of our struggle, because you know, and rightfully so, that the struggle is at the level where we are managing to take ourselves to a level of irreversible stability. You know it. You know we are still struggling with funding the struggle. You know we are still struggling with many issues. And so you are exploiting what you perceive as a vulnerability to eke out concession from us. It is not going to happen. There will be no Achu soup color. Somebody wrote that, oh, the strategy is going to fail. I have just said to you here that the defiance campaign of 26 June 1952 failed. Let it fail. I want to be the man in the arena where I know failure and success. I don't want to be driven by fear of an outcome that is in failure, not to try. I'm saying to you, this phase of our struggle is not the first phase. We have failed many times in different battles. Everything we institute is a contributive battle towards our liberation. We will fail in some, we will succeed in others. But even in failure, we will be the men and the women in the arena. And even the discussion we are having today is contributing to the consciousness of Ambazonian uniqueness, of Ambazonian exceptionalism. The colonial SDU has called for a meeting on Tuesday. We set the agenda for the meeting. Yep, you did. And if that's the only victory, for the first time, take pride in the fact that those guys who butchered us, who portrayed themselves as gods of Ambazonia, are able to call meetings on agendas that you put. You don't see what you are doing. You don't see the positive impact. Even Bia calling us terrorists is an act of recognition because we exist. They denied our existence. They denied there was even a problem. They pussyfooted to Geneva, sneak peek into Ottawa. That's contributive. I said, when people were going to Geneva, and I said, no, I said, for those who go, they show we are ready to talk. For those who didn't, show that the terms are not clear. We should increase the heat. Stop being afraid. Stop being afraid to fail. We may not even see the end. Become the person in the arena. Be the person that knows victory and that knows failure. Caution is for cowards. There is nothing we do that imposes an extra cost on our population. Bus prices just go up. There are less than 200 taxis driving the streets of Bamenda. That's what you are shouting every moment, that Achu soup color should remain. They ban bike riders who form the majority of transport agents. None of you is screaming against the colonial deal. One wrote out there that we could not take the body of General F. Oh, Lord. How do we descend to this level? What pushes a man? I don't want to talk about a woman. What pushes a man to this level? It's not differences in the opinions. It's not differences on the issues. That when a man reaches this level to say, oh, we were afraid of ambush to pick up the body of General Efa. Let's assume that we were afraid of ambush. Would that be a bad policy? You know how many Israelites are in the tunnels in Gaza? Do you know why they are discussing in Qatar? Because there is a price you pay even for the rescue. Must we be foolhardy to show that we are strong? My fellow Ambazonians, Cameroon has been defeated in Ambazonia. And we have to claim that victory. And we have to begin to institute policies and laws that differentiate us from Cameroon. We must escalate the resistance to undermine the last remnants of Cameroon's presence. We must go where we have never contemplated going. We must do things that we have never thought of doing. We must take actions that we never believed we could. And I'm not only saying of the people back at home. I just told you, this me, 7, sitting here, I led men and women and took over Cameroon embassy for 43 minutes. Changed the flag, put the amber flag, lock the gates and lock everybody inside in a room. It's not a hearsay, the video is there. This me sitting here, I have entered an airplane where an Ambazonian was being deported at the Frankfurt International Airport. I entered the airplane and told the pilot, that lady sitting behind there, hemmed by 2 German police, cannot be deported. She was removed from that airplane and I left. I have crawled on my stomach for 300 meters down the river there in the university, at the university, bypassed the fence, went inside to buckle the university gate. I have carried a rifle and went to battles. I don't prescribe what I cannot do. I don't prescribe what I have not done. I don't prescribe what I have not seen others do. The Eritreans undertook a daring mission that destroyed 32 Ethiopian planes. 18 minutes, they call it the 18 minutes mission. It required Eritreans living close to the airport to dedicate themselves for that mission. The price they paid was heavy. You cannot satisfy yourself through limitations by limiting yourselves to what you think is comfortable, by thinking of consequences of the occupier as though they didn't exist when you didn't resist. The enemy's brutality shall not define your actions. The enemy's brutality shall not condition you on how you have to respond. You are a prisoner. How you break out of jail shall not be determined by the consequences that will be imposed on you afterwards. That is the mindset that we have to be free. It's not a walk in a park. Stop playing this game, our people, my people, your people. None of you support those people more than those who are fighting. None of you cares for the ordinary Ambazonian than the soldiers wielding bayonets and rifles in their defense. That is the true sense of care, putting your life in the line of fire in the defense of a people. So don't sit here out here and claim, to pity our people more than us who on a daily basis spend 3 hours to sleep, finding ways and means in their total liberation. Remember the video all of us watch. The price of regret is higher than the effort you may put today. We care for our people. That is why we are able to spend our own time. Nobody is paid for doing this thing. For some of us who are out here every month, we make commitments to the Ambazonian struggle. Every month, sometimes weekly. We make that commitment. We sacrifice to free Ambazonia. Some of us will never ever go there. Some of us will die here in exile. The vice chairman of the AGOFC in Germany died here and was buried here. Calculate how much he has committed to the freedom of a land where his body was never even taken to. So let us stop these baby arguments. We're talking about a system that has burnt thousands of villages, that has burnt homes, burnt our people in homes, committed massacres upon massacres, go and kidnap people from Biafra and Nigeria and take them into jail. We are massaging around policies. To what extent are we supposed to impose this kind of policy? Oh, the enemy is going to shoot you. It's going to shoot you because you changed your taxi color? Did it kill you before because you were driving in blue and white? I'm being whipped up. Shake no day. We have not started. We have not started. We have not started. Happy Father's Day to all the Amber fathers. And thank you to all the mothers and all the women who have made us fathers. And to all the fathers struggling, we pray for you that you will overcome your difficulties. To all the fathers in jail, we will fight for you until you walk out and walk into Amazonia more than Jesus ever walked into Jerusalem. For all the fathers who've lost their lives, I want to let your families know the reason for which they shed their blood, they gave their life, will be realized and they will be honored as heroes of Amazonia. I thank you to all the people who continue to sacrifice because of the decisions we make. Keep it up. Don't blink for 1 second. Amazonia is yours, non-negotiable. And for all those who think we should rethink, we should contemplate, no, not against these barbarians that we offer them refuge and sanctuary, not against these arrogant guys who have denigrated us and bastardized us and imprisoned us and murdered us, not against these people who have not even recognized our existence, not against these people who continue to murder our fighters, murder our people, not against these people who continue to loot and ravage our coasts, not against these people who continue to take over our land and repopulate our cities, not against these people who cause you flight on a daily basis to distant shores where your body and your souls are separated. Not against Cameroon. We better be colonized by North Korea. We may surrender. We may surrender to Chad. We may surrender to Somalia. Not Cameroon. On a place day.